First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, let's kick it off here with another edition of the Eternal Insiders Podcast. If you can't already tell, I'm presently joined by the next big thing in Australian mixed martial arts, just a couple of weeks removed off his extremely violent first-round knockout win on the Dana White's Contender series, earning himself a UFC contract as a result of that, coming back home with that in his back pocket. Before he was the next big thing, he was always the big train. I tell you what, that train is well and truly on time to live up to that billing. The next big thing, it's Tom Nolan, of course, joining me right here, right now. Tom, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the show, man. I know it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for you. How is everything now that you're back home, you're settled in, you got that contract in your pocket? How is everything for you, brother?
Yeah, it's going good, man. Back to training straight away after the fight, which is good. Nothing's really changed, like we all treat each other the same in the gym, no matter who we are. So, yeah, I live pretty much in the gym. I'm very rarely not in the gym, so nothing's really changed. Just
straight back in the gym. When you say you were back in the gym, like, was it like literally you get back like straight off the plane, like you take a day or two, you jump straight back into it? Like, what was the sort of the gap there between actually getting off the plane and getting back into the gym?
We landed early Friday morning and I went in and watched. I didn't train that morning, and then I was back Monday. So I took the weekend. Yeah,
not just the weekend, man. You didn't sort of soak in. Did you watch the fight back a couple of times in that sort of space and time? Did you get to sort of enjoy that a little bit, or what was the go there?
Yeah, I watched it back a few times. It's too exciting not to watch back. But, I watched it back before we landed, and then I watched it back that weekend. And I've tried to not watch it a whole heap more times now because I'm just trying to focus on what's ahead of me now.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I mean, that was in the past, but I mean, if you're watching it a million times and repeat, I don't blame you, man, because it was a sweet knockout win, and we'll definitely get into that. But I want to talk to you a bit about just like that whole experience. I mean, obviously you had a big sort of lead up. I know the guys that compete on the Contender series, they get themselves overseas and do the sort of the promo work and all that sort of thing before that, and we'll talk about that. But can you just tell me about the lead up to the fight itself? Like, what was that sort of first couple of days like? Was this the first time you were into the United States at all? I have to ask, or was this your first time over there?
So the first time I was over there was for the media. For
the media, yeah. So all around, this was your first experience over there.
Yeah, that's my first experience ever leaving the country. Pretty much, other than I've been in Melbourne a couple of times for jiu-jitsu tournaments when I was a young lad, and other than that, I've never been on a plane really.
Melbourne's the extent of where you've been.
Yeah. In Adelaide once. Adelaide and Melbourne, yeah.
Adelaide once. I mean, I've never been to Adelaide. I mean, I'm sort of close to Melbourne. I mean, you're better off up in Queensland than you're down in Melbourne. What did you think of Melbourne when you came down here? What was that like? You're loving the hot weather, probably up in Queensland better than down here, yeah?
Oh, I love Melbourne. I thought it was a really cool city. I've been there. I went there for the UFC in 2019, and I've competed there twice for jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, I really like it. It's probably my favourite city in Australia.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I think it's just a classic thing for us Victorian guys saying shit on our own city. I don't know what it is, like a self-deprecating thing. That must be what it is, man. But cool. So your first time over in the United States. So yeah, like what was that experience for you like, man? I mean, we'll talk about the promo stuff in a minute, but that sort of first couple of days, like leading up to the fight, like how early did you sort of get over there? Were you there for a few days, a week out? I can't quite remember. Like what was sort of the time scale you actually getting over there before the fight?
Yeah, so we got there 10 days out. The first couple of days, the altitude definitely, it felt a little bit funny. Like in the training room, I felt a little bit stuffy, I guess. But other than that, man, it was pretty comfortable. The first couple of days were a little bit weird, but I didn't really get any jet lag, which is good. And it was good. It was hot, definitely really hot.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I didn't sort of know too much about sort of the altitude thing in Vegas. I mean, you hear that a lot from sort of the guys that go to Denver and all that sort of thing. But I suppose, yeah, like you would sort of have that altitude over there, I guess. Like how long was that sort of a couple of days you said before you kind of just adjusted to it? Do you feel it sort of immediately? Like what's that sort of like? Is it just you struggle to breathe a little bit? You just gas out easy? Like what's that sort of like experiencing that?
Yeah, so the first thing we did when we landed was went for a big run. And like the heat plus the flight plus the altitude and just like the new environment, it was like, yeah, definitely hard on the lungs. And then the first hit out the next morning, like we went to Syndicate and we did some pad work and some bag work, and I was definitely blowing a little bit. And then by that night, I was feeling a lot better. I adapted to it pretty quickly. I thought it would be a longer time for me to adapt to it, but it wasn't too bad. Yeah,
okay. Syndicate MMA, any familiar faces there that you sort of knew or just sort of brushed? I think there was a couple, I think Jessie Jess, I think. Was it Syndicate MMA at some point? She might have moved on from there. Anyone you sort of knew there internationally, locally, anything like that?
Yeah, Jojo, Joanna Calderwood. I've trained with her before.
Sure.
She's over there. And there's a few UFC people we saw in there, but like obviously I'd never met them before, like the Americans and stuff.
Yeah, cool. So like, what was your sort of impressions of Vegas, man? Like when you get over there, I mean, your first time obviously being over there, besides obviously doing the promo stuff, like what was the impression you sort of had of getting over there? Like just the differences between sort of being here, the people and that sort of thing. Like what did you sort of make of everything once you got there?
The people are a lot more polite over there.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really nice.
Everyone thinks it's different. Everyone thinks like you go to America and everyone's rude and that sort of thing. I think they're just like, they watch too many movies, something like that. But like, yeah, you can talk about this. American people, except for a few people, obviously, like they're extremely polite people, man. Like they're great. You can talk about it.
Yeah, so they're I think maybe because they're working for their tips, they're they're trying to stay polite and get that extra money. What else did I find different? The coffee over there, people think the coffee's not good, but I find the coffee over there much better than the coffee here.
Sure.
Driving on the other side of the road is pretty sketchy, bit different, you know.
Did you do that? Did you do the driving, or someone driving for you, or you just sort of in the passenger seat experiencing it differently? Or what was that like?
No, Elliot was driving. He's lived over there before, so he was comfortable with it. I definitely was not going to drive. No way.
You weren't going to drive yourself, okay? Well, next time you go over there, man, you got to get used. It's that first couple of minutes kind of shocks a bit that you just kind of get used to it, man. I mean, my experience of going over there for the first time, I was in San Francisco, straight to the airport, like a 5-lane friggin' freeway, just like doing 110 like straight away, like just terrible introduction. But I mean, you get used to it, man. So, but I can certainly appreciate that difference for sure. What was sort of like, so you get to sort of the day of the fight. Yeah, what are those sort of feelings like for you? I mean, you wake up, I don't know what you're staying in a motel there, B&B or anything like that, but you wake up, what are the feelings? Is there nerves, anxiousness, fear, excitement? Like what's sort of going through your mind on that day before that fight for Dana White's Contender Series, man?
Yeah, so I woke up really well rested, slept really good the night before, which that never happens for me, so that was a good sign. I was really excited in the morning, went and had a hit some pads in the morning, went for brekkie, and then, I just calmed right down, went and had a sleep. The difference between here and there was the fight was like a lot earlier in the day. Like we had to leave at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had to plan everything like really early in the morning. Whereas when I fight for Eternal, usually, I don't even get there till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Other than that, we had to do our drug test and then wait around for a long time. And then, warmed up and straight into it. But the emotions were good. I wasn't nervous at all. I was really comfortable there.
Yeah, nice. And what about your sort of impressions of the Apex and everything? I mean, you get to the building and everything, like you get to sort of go check it all out. Like, what did you make of that? You got to visit the PI and all that sort of thing. I'm assuming, of course, you did that for the promo stuff and all that sort of thing in the lead up. Like, what was that sort of like for you, like getting over there and sort of seeing how they do things like on that level? Yeah,
so the first time we went over, I was looking around a lot more. I was more excited to be there. I was, soaking it all in. Like that experience the first time was really good for me because I got to go look at the Apex and go look at all the different rooms and everything. But on fight night, I wasn't there for that. I didn't care. I just walked straight in, did what I had to do, warmed up, and got the job done. I wasn't super excited about being there. I treated it just like another fight night.
Yeah, so you just got that tunnel vision. You're not thinking about your surroundings or anything like that. I mean, you think about an opponent that's been trash talking you and getting your DMs for like the last few weeks and that sort of thing. You're just locked on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't much different to an Eternal event. Like, it was a very similar format, so I felt very comfortable. I wasn't stressed. I thought I was going to be more stressed than what I was.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a shout out to Eternal MMA and the guys that run the show, of course. I mean, there's no one better that preps the fighters over there for the big show, how they do everything in terms of the production and just, getting you guys sort of ready. You fought for Eternal MMA no fewer than 8 times. You include your amateur fights and that sort of thing. A lot of success you had there. So awesome to hear that transition for you, man, and it's sort of geared you up. Of course, you bring your own skills to the cage and, that's going to take you to the next level, of course. But very cool to hear. I did want to ask you as well, just about finding out about that opportunity you had. The last time I had you on the podcast, ahead of the Aiden Aguilera fight, if my memory serves me correctly. And I think I asked you, what you sort of thought your future plans might be beyond the Aguilera fight, assuming you get the job done. Of course, you got the job done in spectacular fashion, as we all know. You said that your management team had something in the back pocket for you that you couldn't talk about. I think it's safe to assume that was a Dana White's Contender Series shot that you ended up getting. So, Cat was out of the bag on that one when you got that sort of call up. But what was that sort of like? Tell me about that process of first finding out about that potentially being an opportunity before the Aguilera fight, if that was indeed what you had in your back pocket there, and then ultimately finding out after that fight that was confirmed. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so after the Liam Stevens fight, my manager told me I was on track. I'd caught their attention. They told me 5-0 would be ideal. And then I had the Adam Cook fight, and they told me if you win this, you possibly could get the call up for the Perth card. Like maybe, like we'll try for it. That didn't come through, but they said to us, hey, get one more, get to 5-0, and we'll look at you. So obviously I beat Aiden, and then. Yeah, they initially said, more experience is always better, like yada, yada, yada. And then they come back. I got a call at 4 a.m. from my manager, like, hey, man, you're on 14 weeks. Let's go. This is the guy you're fighting. And I couldn't go back to bed, obviously. I was just pumped.
Yeah, he's getting called at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, you appreciate that? Would you rather sort of wait and get your sleep in? I mean, I don't know. I would like to get called at 4 o'clock in the morning with that kind of news, man. That must have been pretty exciting. You probably had an idea if you're getting a buzz at 4 a.m. that it must be good news, yeah?
Yeah. He's American, my manager, so he was just as excited as I am, and he couldn't wait, which is it was awesome. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, in those situations, fuck the time differences, right? I mean, this is great news.
Yeah.
Let's sort of get it going. Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, cool story. So, I mean, it's cool to hear that there was a number of avenues. I mean, and shout out to your management team, obviously, having those potential avenues for you to potentially either get on that, UFC card over here in Australia or get yourself on the Dana White's Contender Series, and they sort of had their eye out for you in that meantime, and ultimately going over there, putting on the hell of a performance that you did, did what you said you were going to do and come out with a UFC contract. At the end of the day, huge stuff, and one of the better representatives we've had from Eternal MMA. So very thrilled for you, man. I did want to ask you, just touching a little bit on that when you went over for the promo stuff over there in the lead up to this. What was that sort of experience like? Like, how sort of long were you there for? Like, is it just sort of in and out? They fly you in, you don't get really a chance to sort of acclimate. They shoot the promos, you talk your messages into the camera. Like, what was that sort of like ahead of the fight?
Yeah, so they told us I was going over, and we tried to push it to when I actually came over for the fight. Like, we wanted me to not go over. They said no, but obviously they wanted that stuff finished up nice and early. So, it was pretty short notice. I think I had 2 weeks notice. They were like, yeah, you're going to fly over, you're going to land, you'll be here for 48 hours, and then you'll fly back. So we actually spent more time in transit, like in flights and in the airports than we did on the ground. But I'm very thankful I went over the first time, because it was like a central overload. Like, there was a lot of new things for me. Being in the Apex, it was super exciting, and being in a new country and having a look at Vegas and all that stuff. It was good to get that out of the way, because like I said, when I went back the second time, I wasn't thinking about that stuff at all. Yeah,
I mean, the Aussie guys have got to do it tough, don't they? I mean, it's all well and good for the American guys going over there in the Contender Series. Meanwhile, at worst, they got to hop states or anything like that. You're jumping on a plane to fly at least 15 hours or whatever it is to get to America and sort of do it all and come back in 48 hours. I mean, that's a hell of a slog, man. I mean, it's safe to say you've well and truly earned that contract in a very least the flight miles accumulated there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
100%, man. Now, did want to talk to you about your opponent. Of course, there was a lot of story and all that sort of thing. Brogdon, Grout, or whatever his name was, not really important because you're the man of the hour here, but a lot of talk about sort of the smack talk and everything leading up to that fight, that sort of manufactured bad blood. Something about him taking his shirt off, sending you pictures into your inbox, something like that, like trying to psych you out. I mean, you said as well after the fight, that through your experiences when you were younger of not sticking up for yourself and that sort of thing, and you decided you're going to take a stand from now on with all that sort of bullying. Like, what was that sort of like? Like, talk to us a bit about that trash talk that he had in the lead up to this fight. It sounds kind of suspect.
Yeah, so he wasn't necessarily trash talking. He was just trying to play mental games. So it started off like a couple of days after the fight. I got all these notifications from the Unleashed MMA liking my photos or whatever, and I didn't really think much of it. And then I realized, that's my opponent. And I went through and had a look, and he's gone through and liked all my photos. And for the next month, he's probably every second day he's gone and unliked them and then reliked them, like every second day, just constantly liking all my photos and stuff. And then his coach jumped on and started doing it too. And anyway, then we flew over for the promo, and I finally got told, like, hey, you can announce the fight. So I announced the fight, and then he sent me I just got a message request, and it's just a video of him flexing. And then he turns around, and he's flexing again, and then he the whole his whatever he does.
What the fuck?
And then there was a bit of back and forth. I sent him a photo of a midget at a weightlifting competition and said, that's what you look like. He sent back a skinny guy and said, this is what you look like. And I was like, you're going to get knocked out. We both know it. And then he said, I'm going to knock you out and blah, 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 just the usual stuff. But yeah, it's more a thing of, it goes back to my past. When I was a young fella, I was a shy kid. I didn't really stand up for I didn't stand up for myself at all. And that's what helped lead me into martial arts. And now, like, I won't take that. You know, I've had a few opponents do the same thing to me or try to do it on fight night, and it doesn't go well for them. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel like that kind of does him a disservice? Like he's got no idea that you're going to use this as basically fuel. I mean, not that you necessarily need it, but if you're thinking like shit, yeah, you want to play this game, like I'm just going to use this in the fight. Like he's got no idea that he's just sort of awakening the beast, so to speak.
100%. Yeah. I've had this happen to me a few times now through my career. And yeah, every time it's been pretty brutal, a brutal finish. So yeah, I do enjoy it because it does help spur me on. It gets me going. Like when I'm tired and I'm overtrained and I'm in the training room, it excites me, it keeps me going.
Yeah, so I mean, don't get knocked out by skinny guys, I think was the message after the fight, wasn't it?
Yeah. But he was playing a whole facade. He came up to me at the weigh-ins, and there's a whole story I haven't even talked about for the weigh-ins yet. He he was gonna miss weight. Like Shelby come up to us and said, yeah, you guys are gonna miss weight. And then he came in like an hour and a half late. He ended up making weight.
Yep.
Which we were surprised. But yeah, and then he come up to me like at the back and was like, oh, hey man, like, are we able to drink water yet? And like trying to talk to me like friends. It was really strange. And then obviously we got to the face off, and then he's doing his whole in my face, looking me up and down or whatever. And then same thing on fight night when we were doing the weight check and the drug testing. He like walked past me and was like, oh, hey man, and tried to shake my hand and stuff. And I was like, what's this guy all about? And then, yeah, we got in the cage and he's chirping from across the cage. He's like, oh, I hope you're ready. You're not ready for this. And his team were behind me. They were all chirping as well. And, I didn't say nothing. I was just staring at him like, yeah, we're about to find out. And then when I put him to sleep, he sent me a bunch of messages since. But, I think I've taught him a good lesson. I think he's probably learned like that stuff might work on dudes who haven't fought before or dudes who have lost a whole bunch of times. But, like at this level, that stuff's not going to work. And, I think he's a skilled guy. I think he might go on to do well. And I hope the best for him now that it's all, I don't hold any animosity. Like I got to break his face. So like, that's my payment. I got to make the UFC from it. So I'm happy, but hopefully some lessons will learn for him.
No, definitely. I mean, burying the hatchet for you is burying your left hand in your opponent's face, man. So, I mean, kudos to you for a start for navigating whatever that weird 2023 art of war of flexing in your DMs and that sort of thing and taking your shirt off and then acting real weird for you at the weigh-ins. That's some different stuff there, man. So, good job for you for not getting psyched out by that sort of little back and forth and then sort of going on, getting the job done and then showing the humility after the fight, man. I mean, that's classic Tom Nolan. So, we're used to seeing that from the Eternal MMA fights, and it's great to see on the big stage now. Very much looking forward to sort of seeing what comes next for you in the UFC. But just coming into this fight, I mean, was there a specific game plan? I don't know if anything changed for you with you and your team or Coach Compton and everything. Was there a specific game plan coming in for this opponent, or did it sort of, can I go out on a limb and maybe assume that, with this sort of manufactured bad blood that he sort of conjured that, maybe it was your coach and you were saying, look, you know what you can do, you're better than this guy, just go out there and take his effing head off. Like, did it kind of just boil down to a bit of simplicity like that for you and the team?
Yeah, so by the end of it, it did boil down to that, but I think that's because of the prep we put in. Like we did everything for this fight. Like it's such a big opportunity, I mean, like I was so confident that he was going to come in and try and grapple. So, I just trained so hard to make sure he wasn't going to was definitely a better grappler than him, but I was a far better striker than him. So for me, the path to victory was definitely to knock him out, right? So yeah, we game planned pretty hard for this, but by the end of it, everything was looking so sharp. Steve-O just said to me then, like, man, this guy, he cannot be anywhere. Like you just have to show up the way you're showing up in the gym.
No, I mean, you showed out, man. I mean, for as long as the fight lasted, I mean, you dropped him in sort of the opening seconds of the fight. Obviously, you got the finish there towards the end. But, take us through that sort of first exchange. I mean, you're loading up with the big left kicks. I mean, what a weapon that is for you, by the way. Not just the hands, but I mean, the legs and everything, especially at your height and the range that you got. I mean, just a, multifaceted sort of toolbox that you got there. But you knock him down with that sort of first shot. You end up in sort of that top position and everything. What's going through your mind there? Are you thinking he's potentially finished? I mean, he goes to that sort of armbar attempt and everything. Like, what's sort of happening in your mind at that sort of at that first part of the fight with that exchange?
Yeah, so I was setting some traps with those long kicks. I was trying to force him to feel trapped on the outside and obviously look to close the distance. And then I had some specific weapons that me and Steve had been going over that I thought the fight was going to end differently. I thought he was going to close the distance and then it would be a different shot that would put him out. So when I hit that left hand, I was actually looking to set up an angle change and fire off another big kick, which would hopefully then make him try and close the distance. But yeah, I sat him with it. So I didn't expect to sit him with it. It was a clean shot, but I thought it was going to be more of an angle change. And then, yeah, when we hit the mat, I could feel his squeeze. I could feel like that panic, that terrified squeeze of, not wanting to be finished. So I could hear my cornerman telling me, frame on the face, but be patient. I was just giving him enough resistance that he felt he had to keep working, but I wasn't going to gas out there. I could feel he was gassing out. And then, yeah, I landed some big shots. And then when I stood up, I said to him, I said, get up. And he kind of looked at me, and then he kind of like sighed and looked down on the way up. He kind of went like that. And I knew at that point, I was like, okay, now I get to pick how I finish this fight. And it ended up being that left hand. I wanted it to be something else, but that's all good. I can just save that for another one.
Yeah, I mean, and what a devastating shot that was, man. I mean, the guys in the commentary booth, Paul Felder was all over that, man. I mean, he was wanting to see it from all different angles. They wanted to hear it sort of back over the replays and that sort of thing. So, I mean, you were definitely sort of the star of the night. I mean, take us through that finish, man. I mean, there was that quick sort of little exchange. You tucked the head and you just threw that left. I mean, it just caught perfectly on the chin and dropped him. And then for good measure, you cracked him with one when he was sort of on the ground there. I mean, that was lights out. You announced yourself to the world, man. I mean, you said there you might have wanted to get it done in a different way, but I mean, that was pretty much the perfect way to, announce yourself to the international stage beyond what you've done here in Australia, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not going to complain. It was definitely a good shot. That's that classic Compton flow, you know what I mean? I've rolled my way into those shots. I felt his hands go behind the back of my head. They didn't even touch me, those two shots he threw. And when I felt that one whiz by my ear, I realized, okay, he's got no defense on that side of his face. I'm going to step through this shot, boom, put him out. And then, yeah, that follow-up shot, he didn't fly home the next day. I know that. I think his face is broken.
No, I think everyone's pretty much aware of that, man. I mean, you got him good. I mean, the follow-up for good measure. I mean, again, you announced yourself in like such a spectacular fashion. Couldn't have done any better. And I mean, it's just setting you up for such big things. Everyone's excited to sort of see what comes next for you. But I mean, I just wanted to ask before we do move on to what's potentially next for you, what was sort of that last little bit like for you in terms of, going at the back, I mean, sitting down with all the other fighters, waiting to get, I mean, you're not sitting there waiting for you to get a contract. You damn well know you get the contract, right? But I mean, what was that sort of like, sitting down with those other fighters, interacting with them, getting the contract, obviously call up, and then getting to sort of meet Dana White and everything. Like, what was that sort of experience like for you afterwards now that you got to sort of just settle down a bit and soak that win in?
Yeah, again, it just felt comfortable. Even up until this point now, I've been expecting to kind of feel like a big high from it, like a big exciting rush. But yeah, I don't know, man. I just feel like myself, to be honest. It is a little bit strange. I thought I would, I get a lot more excited after a win on Eternal, to be honest. But I spent a lot of time envisioning this fight, a lot of time seeing these shots and envisioning myself talking with Dana and everything happening that happened. So when it did happen, I was not surprised one bit, So yeah, I don't know. I haven't had that rush. I don't think I will. I think I've got work to do. I've got to prove myself still, and I'm excited.
I think that's such a sign of just maturity, man. I mean, you're still so young. What, 23, 24, still 23, man. I mean, you're just growing up in the game. I mean, the lofty expectations that you must put on yourself. As you said, this doesn't surprise you. I mean, I think you see sort of a lot of fighters and they get knockouts and they scream, like everyone's got their sort of own different thing. But I think a lot of people sort of seem surprised or relieved they've kind of got it done. And you've kind of settled into this quiet demeanor where you just, as you said, there's work to be done. This is just the beginning. So I'm not surprised that you're not feeling that high because what you've projected for yourself and the expectations you got, there's still such a journey to go on, man. And I think you set yourself up really well for that. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah. Out the back, we were watching the other guys fighting. They had a TV set up for us. And there was 3 decisions before my fight. And the boys just looked at me and we all had a big grin. We were like, yep, we're about to go steal the show. It was crazy. It felt like every time I'd gone on a run and thought about it, it felt like I was right there. I was like, oh, this is literally there's no way this can't happen. It has to happen. And then it happened and I was like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, what was that like sort of sharing that with your team, man? I mean, I think the guys on the commentary team said that, a big kudos to you is that, it's not all about you. You talk so much about, Team Compton Training Center and your training guys, obviously Steve, Elliot, I think Dom, Fam was there with you and all that sort of thing too. So, yep. I mean, what was that like just being able to experience that with those guys, share that win and just bring it home for the team? That must have been a really cool moment for everybody.
Yeah, we're all best mates in the gym. We all share the knowledge and we all care about each other a lot. So it really means a lot to me to represent the Compton boys. It means a lot. And also Dom, he's my wrestling coach as well. So it feels good. I haven't got to show it yet, but we're working a lot. And yeah, I will get to show it soon. Definitely, someone's gonna eventually get me down, and then we'll see from there. But yeah, just to represent all those guys, it really means the world to me because they do a lot for me, you know.
No, they do a lot. And I mean, also shout out to Elliot Compton. He's got himself a fight coming up on Eternal 79. I think I saw coming up recently. So big things for the gym. Of course, Don Marfan coming off a win in his own right. So a lot of really cool things at a Team Compton Training Center. Much less yourself, man, doing the big things in the UFC. As we said, next big thing for Australian MMA. And you're well on that trajectory to sort of keep achieving that. So very cool to see everything that you guys have got going on. And just sort of, looking forward to what's potentially next year, man. I mean, is there any idea of sort of what's coming up? I mean, if you've got something maybe in the back pocket, I'm sure there's nothing you can sort of announce, but was there any potential or any sort of look of you ever getting on maybe that UFC 293 card coming up? I know that's probably not a possibility now because we're sort of so close. Was there ever any talk of potentially getting you on that card, anything like that, or any discussion of anything in the sort of the future? Like, can you shed any light on what potentially the future looks like for you and whatever poor soul's getting in there with you next?
Yeah, so the first thing my manager said to me after the fight when I saw him was that Dana requested for me to be on the Sydney card. But I landed back from the flight and, even though I knocked old mate out, I always get a few injuries from my fights. Like I got a couple of things that I won't talk about because they're reoccurring. But, I'm only, like you said, I'm only young in this game and I want to be smart with what I'm doing. I got back. It was my first time traveling. It was my first time, obviously, a fight to this magnitude. A big fight camp where I put a lot of pressure on myself. And you're going to have these highs and you're going to have to, there's always a come down, you know what I mean? And I didn't want to take a fight on 3 weeks' notice, have to cut the weight again, fight injured. And, my whole brand is that I'm going out there and I'm putting these dudes out viciously. Like, that's what I'm about, And I don't want to go out there and win boring. Like, for me, this isn't about winning. I'm not out there to win or lose. I'm out there to hurt people. So if I'm going out there and I'm banged up a little bit and then this dude doesn't get my full potential and he gets to walk out of there unscathed or with his health, that's not cool for me. Like, that's why I'm there. I'm there to try and strip these dudes of their health. So, yeah, that's it for me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that puts you in extremely fine stead, man. I mean, we know what the UFC is. Like, obviously, it's mixed martial arts, but, I mean, it's also entertainment at the end of the day. And, I mean, Dana White will say it himself. I mean, he loves entertaining fighters. He's always looking for the next big thing. He's looking for guys that want to go out and knock people out. I mean, you've never had a boring fight in your life, man. I mean, everything that you've done on Eternal, all the knockouts you had, I mean, even the decision wins you had. I mean, I don't even think you've barely had a boring round in your fight, mate. I mean, I'm sure you'd agree. Like, everything for you, I mean, it's just the perfect sort of mold or the meld of like just skill, but also just ruthless aggression there and everything as well. I mean, you're always sort of looking control. And I mean, everything you're utilizing in terms of like your frame, I mean, for a lightweight, 6'3" with the range and everything you've got. I mean, a skinny guy, right? And all that sort of thing. But I mean, you're just such a scary prospect for this division. And honestly, I mean, Australian representative aside, like I can't wait to see what comes next year, man. And just the potential matchups you got in your future, because I mean, there's just so many cool things that will sort of come your way, and just so many people are going to get introduced to you, as a fighter from Australia, putting on some massive fights, for the guys in the UFC and all that sort of thing as well. So absolutely cannot wait to see what sort of comes from you. I mean, just last couple for you, man. I mean, if you could sort of think about maybe what your next 12 months looks like, as a contracted UFC fighter, have you you've talked a little bit about visualization. Have you sort of thought about what you'd sort of want maybe your first 12 months to look like in UFC, like in a perfect world, paint a picture? What would you sort of like to achieve? What's the roadmap for you in your mind of what you'd sort of like to do over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we're looking to go November or December again, back overseas, hopefully in the States. They're working on it now, so I don't know anything about dates or opponents yet. Like, nothing's been offered, but that's what we're like in talks with. So, yeah, I'd like to get one in before Christmas, and then I always love fighting in March. I don't know why, I enjoy fighting in March. So, yeah, I definitely want to get one in early in the year. I guess it sets me up for the rest of the year then. And then, yeah, if I could I like 3 a year. Four is pushing it a little bit, but 3 to 4 is good for me for a year. So, yeah, I'll go December, March, and then I'll try and get 3 more after that, hopefully. If not, definitely 2 more.
And then what do you sort of think you're setting yourself up for long term, man? I mean, like I know it's such like a generic question, but I mean, you ask a lot of people, like, what do you sort of want to do, with your career and that sort of thing? And like, that answer is not always, I want to be a UFC champion or anyone. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are happy sort of showing up, getting their fights in UFC. I certainly know that's not you, but what's the sort of the ultimate end goal here? Have you got something mapped out for what you want your career to look like? I know we're still in early stages. We're not getting ahead of ourselves, but what's the ultimate dream for you? Potential matchups, anything like that? Anyone you'd like to match up in the future? What is the goal for you when it's all said and done?
Yeah, so I want this probably the next 4 fights or 5 fights to be against, guys who aren't in the top 15 yet. And I want to go out there and make it look easy. I want to put these guys away savagely. And then I want to start picking off the top 15 one by one, working my way through them all until I find someone who, equally wants it like me. So far, every guy I'm fighting is the next best guy. The next best guy I've fought, from Adam to Aiden to now Bogdan, they're all the next best guy. And I feel like I'm finishing them faster and more violently each time. So yeah, I want to go out there. I want to beat some people up, get paid what I'm worth, and run through the top 15. And then obviously I want to get that title. And then double champ status is always a goal of everyone's. So I would love that as well.
Let's go, man. I mean, that's a perfect sort of roadmap for what you could potentially achieve in your future. I mean, who's going to doubt you, man? I mean, for everything that you've put on, everything we just talked about, I mean, who's going to doubt what you could potentially do? Very exciting to hear that you could potentially look at double champ status. I assume that means, eventually you'd like to sort of move up in weight, given your frame and all that sort of thing. I'd assume you're not cutting sort of down to featherweight or anything like that. But let's definitely see what comes next. I mean, for you, sort of your next UFC fight, man, I got to ask, what do you think the odds are that the UFC are going to potentially let you come out to a Parkway Drive song, man? I mean, I think guys like Jake Matthews have sort of tried to get the heavy music in there and all that sort of thing, and they've been turned down. Like, what do you reckon the odds are in letting you come out to a Parkway Drive song, man? We got to see that happen, surely.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. That's my walkout song. I need that.
Jake Matthews has talked about this in the past. He said I can't remember if it was Parkway Drive specifically. I think it might have been Parkway Drive, and he said he wanted this song, and the UFC said no, they didn't quite sort of vibe with that, which kind of weirds me out because, I mean, guys like Matt Brown come out to heavy music and that sort of thing. So, I mean, if you run into any roadblocks with anyone trying to turn you down for Parkway Drive, I mean, you got to have words, brother. We need Parkway Drive, right?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I've actually envisioned having them play live for me for like a title fight.
Yes.
As I walk out.
No shit. I was literally going to say, the last thing I was going to say, like before we came out here, I was going to say, hey, let's manifest a little bit here. I was thinking of like, McGregor versus Mendez when he had Sinead O'Connor like singing there. I mean, yeah, imagine that, like Parkway Drive, like bringing you in for a fight, man, for a title fight. I mean, let's say that right now. That's in the future. Parkway Drive, before it's all said and done, when you're the champion. I mean, let's get Parkway Drive on that stage, man, bringing you out. Do you have the song that you want to stick with, Wild Eyes? Like, what do you want? Is there anything you got in mind? That's the song for now until eternity?
Yeah, definitely Wild Eyes. That's my song for sure.
God, imagine that in Australia, man. I mean, for your first Australian UFC fight, like, people are going to go ape shit for that. I know there's a lot of Parkway Drive fans that be turned out to UFC fights for sure. That's going to be bone-chilling stuff.
Yeah, that would be mental. And it's pretty achievable. Elliot actually like grew up with those guys, so I'm sure he could eventually somehow get in contact with them for that to possibly happen. So yeah, I'll hopefully the UFC allow it. I've never heard of that before, to be honest. Yeah,
no, maybe it was a thing for the past. I got no idea, but I mean, it's got to happen. So whatever calls anyone's got to make. I mean, Parkway Drive for your fights, especially if you're fighting here in Australia, but absolutely travesty, a crime for you can't get Parkway Drive for your walkout music, for your next fight, and for all the fights you're going to have in the future. And like we said, Parkway Drive, playing for your first title fight when we get it here, hopefully in Australia. That'd be the coolest thing in the world to see, man. So, hey, brother, thank you very much for your time. I've had you here on a couple of times. Always a pleasure. I know the last couple of weeks have been an absolute whirlwind for you with training and everything you've been doing. So, thank you very much. Awesome to see what you're going to be sort of doing in the UFC, man. But, I mean, you'll always be an eternal guy with us at heart. So, very much looking 100%. Forward to covering the rest of your career, man. And we'd love to have you on the show again sometime, potentially talking about your next opponent or talking about your next big win in the UFC, brother. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. Take it easy.
Cheers.